session, and I'm Fiona Jenkins, and I've been given the topic of developing leadership and influencing skills at all levels. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the Exec Director of Therapies and Health Science in Cardiff Vale and the Interim Executive Director of Therapies and Health Science in Cwmtaf Morgannwg Health Board. So moving on to the next slide, just tell you the brief that I've been given for this afternoon. Been asked to talk about my personal journey to leadership. Apologies about this, but bear with me. But I'm going to go on to talk about some opportunities for developing leadership careers, both in a manager or a clinician level, tips about succession planning, some development opportunities perhaps, but also to try and engage with you in this virtual way with questions and answers. So you'll see there is within the conversation box, there is a chat box there where you can put a Q&A bit down. So if you've got any questions for me as you go along, do type them in there, and I'll try and come back to some of these at the end. So don't be shy if you've got some questions to ask. So going on to the next one. First thing about leadership, is it about nurture or is it about nature? Well, to be honest, it's a bit of both, isn't it? So there is something about our genetic makeup, look at your family, look at your parents, look at your relatives. Is there something in there that's a bit leadershipy about you? But actually, if you haven't got much through the nature side, you can actually nurture it. So, a bit of a balance between nurturing and nurturing. I guess we've all got life experiences where we would have grown and developed our leadership careers in that perspective. So next slide. If we move on to the next one, we'd just say my very early leadership lessons. Yes, I was a brownie. And just thinking about, in your childhood, what do you do? Well, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure that I live up to all the aspirations of the Brownie Guide promise. But actually, the Brownie Guide law about always doing your best and giving back to others is probably one that stuck with me throughout my life. So thinking about having a plan and sticking to it. Well, when I was a seconder, I had a plan to become a sixer. So there you are. I obviously got there. I was a sixer of the gnomes, if you're interested. But always work hard to succeed. I did have an armful of badges, as most girls of that age do. But also, I enjoyed being part of a team as a brownie, but didn't always win, but we always tried our best. But thinking of things without life, an early learning lesson is, if it's not right for you, try something else. So I did try the Girl Guides, but I didn't like it that much. Okay, next lesson. And we'll move on to this one. So my early years in school, I was a bit of what you might call a sporty type. So yeah, I liked horse riding. I liked doing the hurdles, netball, whatever it was, I would do. So yeah, I was one to be out on the hockey pitch on a Saturday too. For the keen-eyed ones of you that live in deepest West Wales, you might see Tasker's School for Girls there. That's where my secondary school was. And for those that lived across the border, my early schooling was in the Midlands in Sutton Coldfield. So that's the shrubbery school there where I started off. But actually thinking about nurture nature, I did do public speaking when I was in my teens. To be honest, I have no idea why, but I did get some early learning at that stage, which I think possibly might hopefully stand me in good stead for this afternoon. But coming through my school years, there was this bit of, gosh, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? So thinking about on the next slide, where what I would do is I had career choices, and being a fairly active person, I thought I don't want a job where I just sit down behind a desk. I want to be a bit active. So actually, the career of a physiotherapist was one for me. And off I went to Salford University to start my study to be a physio. Next slide, please. So my clinical years. Well, I did work in, as most physios did then and still do now, had the opportunity to work across a whole spectrum of different healthcare elements. So worked in the community, in hospital services, and got a good grounding in adult services, children's services, and everything in between. I guess if you were to put me in my place of passion where I would be if I was working clinically now, it would be in trauma, major trauma. I looked at the hand splint and thinking, yes, I was a member of the British Association of Hand Therapists for some time. I think I was also a member of the British Isokinetic Society for some time. But yeah, very happily working within those environments, and got a good grounding within my clinical sphere. Next slide, please. So, alongside the clinical, I did pick up and doing some work with my professional body. So, for the physios in the room, you'd know that the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy is both a professional body and a trade union. And when I was a junior in my career, there was a gap for a trade union steward for the CSP. And it was thought that it was time for one of the younger people within the team to do this. So, Fiona, would you pick this up? I had absolutely no idea what I was letting myself in for, but an opportunity, so I said yes. But then this opened many doors for me in being able to have some development, some training, some CPD in a range of things to support my role as a trade union steward. Negotiating skills are one that came in very handy when I stepped into management. I've always worked alongside both secondary and primary care, but was fortunate enough to do some work on pay negotiating and such with the Department of Health and a range of other things. Seem to recall going to Newcastle once to be on an industrial tribunal. So, great opportunities that you never thought that you would have. Next slide, please. So I just list here some roles that I undertook, and I've put some of the Whitley grade bands that I was in alongside the what would be the equivalent agenda for change bands. So I did start my career off at what would be now a band 5. Developed my clinical skills through to what was a senior 2 band 6. Became a more experienced clinician as a band 7, and then stepped into management as a superintendent 3, which will be a band 8A equivalent, as a deputy head of physio, and took some time developing my roles within that. Developed some postgraduate skills, particularly within orthopedics, a range of clinical skills training in a different range of fields, largely linked to MSK work. I did my steward's training, but I also became, as a deputy head of physio, managing an inpatient service. I thought I better get some management skills, and a great opportunity to do what was a NEBS management diploma, probably the best diploma that I'd ever done, which made me think, actually, I think it's management that I'm probably better at than being actually a clinician. So some of the roles in the parallel part of my world as a trade unionist, I became a unit steward. I then became the South West Wales branch chair. I chaired the staff side in my local hospital. I became the Welsh regional steward. Then I became the deputy national steward, and I chaired the Welsh board. Then I was elected as the Welsh board member for council, and became a CSP council member and sat on a range of committees there, and ended up being one of the vice presidents of the CSP. So took opportunities both within my profession, but slightly outside of my clinical sphere, I suppose. Next one. So I got to a stage when I was a deputy head of service, superintendent 3, doing management and clinical work, thinking, somebody said to me, do you want to be a big fish in a small bowl, as in, top dog within a small organisation? Or do you want to be a small fish within a big bowl? And I decided at that time, I wouldn't mind being a small fish and getting some wider experience and learning beyond what had become familiar to me. So I did take a big leap. Next slide, please. But in taking that leap, I had to reflect on the leadership learning that I'd had so far. And I thought, actually, gosh, if I'm going to take a leap beyond being a deputy head of service, I need to develop to get a master's qualification. At that stage, to be honest, it wasn't mandatory to have a master's, and not that many staff did have master's qualifications. But actually, I was recognizing that I had staff that were more junior than me that were wanting to go on master's qualification. I'm thinking, well, if I'm supporting them to have a master's, perhaps I should have one myself. And I would say for today, definitely get a master's because you won't get into any senior positions if you haven't. But it's only one step at a time. You don't have to do it all at once. Do a module. But you've got to learn your trade. You've got to be able to lead by example and lead from the front. Don't ask people to do stuff that you wouldn't do yourself, or you don't know how to do yourself, or that you couldn't learn to do yourself. So don't put people in other circumstances where you wouldn't find yourselves. Have a plan for the future. Did I have a career plan mapped out? Not properly, and I wish I had probably planned it out sooner. But you've got to have a vision. You've got to engage with others. But if you have a vision and a plan, you make sure that you deliver on it. There's something about being optimistic and stepping forward and taking opportunities. And if I look back on my career, I think, yeah, I probably have taken opportunities as they've arisen, but also gone and found out some opportunities that probably people didn't know were there, but that you seek and you have discussions and you find them. I think I've probably learned as much, if not more, from not doing it quite right, as well as doing the things that I have done right. So I'm sensing it, take opportunities. You won't get it right all the time. And actually, if you don't get it right, you learn how to do it better next time. So, don't be too Mrs. Cautious. Take a leap of faith and do the best that you can, even if it doesn't go quite right. So grasp every opportunity. Decline some, and I would think when there was a decline some here, I was thinking of an example to give. I was given the opportunity to go to the Middle East to present on some work, but I could only go if I took a male with me, and I had to act as his chaperone. So I thought, you know what, this isn't an opportunity that I want to take. It didn't sort of fit very comfortably with me, and it's one that I did decline. But recognize that perhaps everybody isn't as driven as you are, which probably is quite a good thing, to be honest, because we need a range of staff, some of them that are solid and deliver on the job that they're asked to do. But you do need some people that will look to take you to where you need to be and to be fairly driven in moving the service forward. Because if you don't move forward, you won't stay where you are, you will actually go backwards. But what I'd say is look after people on the way. And I've always tried to be true to people that I've worked with, and treat them for who they are, reflect them, and celebrate with them, but have fun on the journey. So, but always think of people and treat them respectfully, and have good fun with them as you do. Be fair and be firm. So I hope I'm fair. I can be firm, but I think actually people respect you for having values and parameters of where you can work and how far you can go, but where you can't go. But I would also say teams. You achieve much more with people than on your own. So always collaborate and work with others. When I did work in rural West Wales, I used to become somewhat hacked off when you think, oh, people think just because you work in a small organisation that you're not great. Well, actually, small and rural can be fabulous too. And I truly do still believe this, even though I now work in a bigger health organisation. But look broadly to horizons continuously. Look to see what's out there and see how you can make the future, not just reflect on somebody's past. But a thing that always grounds me is, if it's not about patients, what are we all doing? Next one, please. So I got to a time where it became actually decision time. Decision time for me. Do I stay where I am, or do I think to take a big leap? So I was at a deputy head of physio, an 8A level, but then thinking actually my next step would be to a head of physio. And actually, heads of physio were 8C, that sort of equivalent at the time. So not one step up the ladder, two steps up the ladder. Did I feel brave enough to take a big, bold leap to go to a bigger organisation as a head of physio from a smaller organisation that was a deputy head? So I did look around and think, actually, yeah, head of physio is where I'm heading next. And I looked at the pros and the cons. It takes you out your comfort zone. I had two young children. I had to move away from family. I was a single parent. So, oh God, can I do this? Am I able to do this? How am I going to cope? Well, to be honest, you've just got to take a leap of faith, work out, is it going to be more positive? And actually the negatives of staying put and perhaps stagnating in a role that I'd grown out of would not have been great for me, probably not for my staff nor for my patients. So actually it was the right thing for me to make a move. I looked around and saw where there were heads of service jobs going and thought, actually, I'm not going to apply for a role that if they offer to me, I'm thinking, oh, I don't want to take that one. So my message will be only go for jobs that your heart is really in. Don't go half-hearted and then withdraw on the day of the application or when you're shortlisted. Make that decision before you apply. So I was lucky enough to be appointed to the head of physiotherapy in South Devon Healthcare Trust. And then through the lovely NHS England reorganisations that regularly take place, worked within Teambridge PCG, and also was head of physio when Torbay became a care trust, but worked within primary, secondary mental health services when I was in South Devon. Next slide, please. So, if you want to know who am I, let's tell you a bit. This is sort of soul revealing here to tell you a bit about me. So, but this tells you a bit about perhaps who I am if you're thinking, who is this woman that's on the screen? So, I've done a Myers Briggs type on several occasions, to be honest. So, apparently, I am an ENTP, which Myers Briggs calls the inventor. So, some of my key characteristics that you might be able to see on the slide there. Apparently, I am described as clever. I'm not sure I'd describe myself as that one, to be honest. Enthusiastic, yes. Cerebral, can be, not always. Outgoing, innovative, loyal, resourceful. Yeah, I think actually when I read this, I think, yeah, this probably is me, to be honest. But some of the possibilities that I do, I see possibilities everywhere. I love to debate ideas. And I like to spread my enthusiasm to others. So actually, these Myers-Briggs people probably did summarize me within this one. I chuckled when I saw this other possible careers that I might have done. I might have been good as a scientist. So actually, as a director of therapies and health scientist, this is the one for me. Okay, and this is where Barack Obama and I are synced. We're both the same, apparently. So let's go on to the next one. So I've done more than one personality profile. This is one that I have done recently with the Cumtaff Morgannwg Health Board. So we've done a Clifton team strength. So there are 4 different quadrants there, and there are a range of, I think it's your top 50 that go into these, but these are my top 10. So within these quadrants, apparently I am an executor by design. My top strength is that I'm an arranger. I like to organize and get stuff done. I'm a strategic thinker, so that's my second strength. And I'm an activator, I like to be very proactive in doing things. I won't read all the rest of these out for you, but actually, what you might say there, oh, her number 10 is in relationship building. That's probably not her strongest profile. And I'm thinking, well, I do like to build relationships, but I sense that I spend more time doing the other things than I do in building relationships. So, message to self, Fiona, spend more time on relationship building because actually it's time well spent. But I'm pretty strong in the other ones. And next slide, please. So here's one that we've recently done with the Cardiff Vale executive team. And we were all asked to do a strength scope. So this is another evidence-based way of looking at your different strengths and profiles. The purple little bars that you probably can't read actually do tell you where your top 7 strengths are. And we've each done this as an executive, and then they've pulled them together as the whole team so that we can see where we're strong as a team, where we have overlaps, where we have gaps. So you would see there, and I will just pull out for you, my top strengths are in creativity, innovation, flexibility, decisiveness, persuasiveness. Relationships building is actually up there in one of my top ones, so I'm not so weak in relationship building. But I don't have any top strengths in the emotional profile, but I'm not so weak in those because between the 4 quadrants, I run between, 25, 25, 25, 25 will be my 100%, but I run between 24% and 27%. So I'm probably fairly well streamed across the others. But my one home take for this is out of all of the executive team in Cardiff Vale, I am the only one that has creativity in its top 7 strengths. A thing that I keep remembering and reminding my executive colleagues. Next one. But if I just tell you where my leadership journey's taken me, I did a map of the world. I did start off with a map of the UK, but then I thought, no, I'll put some stars on the map of the world. So the UK obviously has quite a big lot of stars, and to be honest, it would be blotted out if there were stars on every bit where I'd been. But my family's from Yorkshire. I was born in the Midlands. I schooled in West Wales, lived my early life as an adult and my early career in West Wales, moved to Devon, and here I am in Cardiff now. But I've also been privileged to go to many places around the UK and Northern and Southern Ireland and Scotland on my leadership career, but also stars on different parts of the globe where I've been invited to present at conferences or do some leadership development masterclasses and training. So privileged to have done a little bit of globetrotting during my career. Next slide, please. So some of the places that I've developed this, so I've spoken to you about Salford, where I did my undergraduate training, my work in West Wales, South Devon, INSEAD Paris. This was probably the most pivotal thing that I did in my leadership development, a leadership skills development that was commissioned by NHS England, where they selected people from across England from clinical careers who were looking to go into probably executive or even chief exec roles in their career. And we were given some fabulous education at the postgrad university in INSEAD. And it was just, to be honest, life-changing to be there. I did some work with the NHSI and did lots of work in Oxford and Warwick University. Done some personal education at the Leadership Centre in Exeter University, which is where I did my master's, and at Plymouth University, where I did my PhD. Also developing my career in Cardiff and in CTM. So I just popped down there some of my educational stuff at the various universities I've been to. But I've been invited presenters at these range of places, both within the UK and within the wider world, I suppose, if I'm truly honest. Now, you might look at that last list and say, my gosh, Fiona's been well funded by the NHS to go to all of these places. What I say is all of that last lot from Vancouver through to Singapore, I've self-funded these. So I've actually invested in my own career development and gone to present at conferences when I thought, I'm not going to ask the NHS to fund this for me, because actually this is as much about my development as giving back to others. So I've happily funded myself to go to a range of professional conferences and presented at a range of these different places. Next one, please. So the skills that I've learned and needed to learn across the way. Well, I told you earlier that I'd learned about my clinical skills development and done the usual things that you would do to go on your career as a clinician in whichever subspecialty you develop in. But moving into management, I definitely did some work on developing people skills, and would say that these learn as much by how you've been treated not well to know how you should treat others, but also get some formal education and training on things like appraisal, setting, about managing people through performance. Actually, a bit of a trade union background isn't a bad thing when you're taking people through perhaps poor performance or disciplinary elements that comes as a part of the territory as a manager. I put PDSA cycle down there. Gosh, I think I was part of the original implementation of a PDSA, but this is something about service improvement methodology that you need to learn, because wherever you are, be it a clinician or a manager, we've got to really embed a range of improvement techniques to make our clinical services better. I've had quite a range of 360 appraisals during my career, and I guess some of the things I've just shared with you about the formal sort of typing of yourself as a manager and a leader. You've got to do these things and you've got to learn, and sometimes they're good things that people say to you, sometimes they're not so good things that you need to listen to and learn and reflect on, and then you grow. If you never ask the question, how do you impact on others, you never really know, and you can never make the change that perhaps is needed. So definitely 360 appraisal is an essential part of skills development. But I've also done some formal project management skills training and qualifications. But I guess throughout my career, developing networks. So I've got a range of networks that are both within my profession, within allied health professions, within healthcare science professions, within Wales, within England, within the UK, and I've got a fairly broad international network that I can draw on from time to time. And it's amazing how you can help people when they want a question answered, or you can seek help and advice when you're doing some work, which we would know that when we've been looking at digital skills recently. I know a very bright occupational therapist in Canterbury, New Zealand, who knows somebody in Australia who then was able to network with us back in Wales when NHS England had forgotten that Wales was part of the UK. So it's great that we're now part of an international work on digital skills, which I'm delighted that Matthew King is now taking forwards for us. So draw on your resources when you need them. Next slide, please. So some of the learning opportunities I've had. So I've just put some organisations down for there. I'll just pick two out of here just to illustrate. well, no, three. I've got to do three. So Kaiser Permanente, fabulous opportunity to go to California to look at how a different health system works together. You know, the privately funded USA system, but there's a lot that the NHS can learn from Kaiser, and there's a lot that NHS has learned from Kaiser, and actually now a very digital organisation, so we can still do more learning as we go forward. So great opportunity to go to California and see how that one worked. But Unilever, a great collaboration that was done between the NHS in Devon with Unilever, who you know, an international company, renowned in the time when I went there for Persil, Dove soap, and bread. So they do all sorts of manufacturing. And as an NHS small group, we went to visit some of the Unilever factories, learned an awful lot about their quality management systems, and they came to the NHS and learned an awful lot about the public sector. But great exposure, because even if you work in different industries as such, there's a lot of things that we have in common. Actually, I haven't put Toyota down there. So Toyota is another one where I've been and done some great learning. But Map of Medicine was a fabulous learning that I did about 15 years ago. When working as a service improvement lead in Devon, we recognised that we needed to get some clinical pathways together that would work for the GPs to get them to understand what the evidence-based pathway was for a range of different conditions. Some of them within the therapies element, many of them outside of it. So we did cardiology, urology, almost every ology. But actually, we discovered that Map of Medicine had some great pathways in it that did the breach between primary care and secondary care services, very evidence-based, that the GPs could discuss with their patients, and then only use secondary care when secondary care was needed. So we localised these pathways in South Devon, and I was then asked to present this to a range of different regional health boards across England, as we were innovators in the use of Map of Medicine. And hey ho, in Cardiff Vale, about 15 years later, we have adopted Health Pathways, which is a very, very similar system to what Map of Medicine did several years ago. But the benefits of having pathways that are agreed between primary and secondary care, it's not so much about the benefit of the pathway, it's about the benefit of having a conversation with a range of clinicians with the patient at the centre that really makes the difference. And that was some really great learning that was available for me at that time. So next one. My best opportunities, INSEAD. Oh, I can't tell you how wonderful it was. And if any of you have any opportunity to do any management and leadership training, go to INSEAD. Absolutely fabulous. And by the side, my daughter, who is now in her early management career, is going on a leadership program to INSEAD. So it's the world comes back round again. I think she's probably not doing the NHS branch of it, though. She's doing a different one. But those of you that might recognise Don Berwick here, who was the guru of the Institute for Healthcare Improvement, I had the opportunity to present directly to him around a service improvement that I'd done around waiting list management probably about 20 years ago, where we have a service in Devon that had no waiting lists. So we got rid of our waiting lists, had direct referral and same day appointments, which remains much the same to this day. And it was great to present this to Don, who then very kindly gave me his business card. So I have his email address and his telephone number. Okay, next one, please. So here's some of the roles that I've undertaken. Although I became a head of physio, I did go back to being a student and really started my master's career with Exeter University, doing module by module after the kids had gone to bed at night, but fabulous training that they undertook there. I went to be the lead for the NHSI Back Pain Collaborative. And I went on to a session with a couple of my colleagues, which went to Oxford. We went for the day. And then at the end of the day, they said, oh, I think we might stay on till tomorrow. Can anybody stay? So they left me in Oxford to be the lead for the back pain, whilst everybody else went home. But I'm very glad that they left me there, because I then was able to do some real great leadership work, working with Oxford and the Cambridge teams. And actually, our South Devon team did far better work than they did, because we weren't stymied by big academics, and we really did learn the benefits of biopsychosocial approach to back pain, the benefits of having back pain non-medicalized. Some of it, you'd say, we're still actually trying to implement here today. I chaired the MSK groups. I became a clinical director for Therapies. And then alongside that job, I also became the service improvement lead for the trust that I worked in. I mentioned as part of that, I became the map of medicine lead. I chaired the Southwest physio managers group, then chaired the allied health professions group for the Southwest Leadership Academy. I joined the alumni of the universities that I'd worked with and had education with, worked with the Department of Health for a bit, became a fellow of the CSP, and then did some writing, which I'll just touch on in a minute. So a range of things that I'd done. Okay, next slide, please. I hope you're not all falling asleep now. This is the disbenefit of this system is I can't see if anybody here. I could be speaking to myself, but let me keep going. I'm hoping that you put in some questions within there that I will get to. So some of the leadership learning I've had on this journey: know yourself, be self-aware. You've got to self-regulate yourself though. The motivation has to come from within. Be empathetic to others, but also make sure that you have social skills along the way. So, and with that means have fun, enjoy it, celebrate when things go well. But stretch yourself, but also stretch your team. You don't move forwards if you don't have stretch. And opportunities don't always come looking for you. You have to go looking for them. The only reason I ended up being at INSEAD is that I spoke to somebody from a different part of the UK who said, have you heard about this programme in INSEAD? Because it hadn't percolated through to our organisation. And then you had to get sponsorship from your chief executive to go. So you sometimes have to go out there and ask, rather than waiting for people to come to ask you. My greatest learning has been outside of my professional box. I love physiotherapy, but I also love very much the other allied health professions too. And you learn much more than being part and parcel of a multidisciplinary service, and as well as learning with our medics and our nursing colleagues too. I always say, and a bit of my learning is thank people for a job well done. I don't know that I always did earlier in my career. I hope I do now. And any of my colleagues that are here with us now would say, if I don't say thank you, do, because I really thank everybody for a job well done. And, most people do a really great job and just don't get enough thanks. But shout about the achievements that you do in your team. Put yourself forward for awards. Put your staff forward for nominations. And let's see tomorrow who gets the nominations and gets the awards that we're giving out as part of this Congress. But promote staff from below. Let them fly. You will have people within your team who you can spot are going to be great stars of the future. Don't think that you have to be top dog. It's great to appoint some of your junior staff and just let them go and just help them on their careers. And I would say always give something back. The NHS has been great to me and my profession's been great to me, but it can't always be take. You've got to give things back. So let's make sure that we do. Okay, next slide, please. And just put here just a whole range of logos of various conferences and congresses that I've been fortunate enough to be. There's quite a chunk of New Zealand in there. I think I've probably been there 7 times. I went to a conference in Vancouver where I presented with somebody from New Zealand I'd never met, somebody from Australia I'd never met, and another person I'd met once. And when I presented there with them at an international conference, it was the World Confederation of Physical Therapy, 2007, you'll see that in the top left. I was then asked to give an inaugural conference presentation speech, the keynote speech at the inaugural Allied Health Conference in New Zealand the year after. And I've been back to New Zealand every other year since then. And some fabulous learning that I've done, loads of masterclasses. I've given stuff to them, but actually I've learned a load from them too. So yeah, I have been a bit of a globetrotter, but I've loved it. Okay, next slide, please. And yes, I did feel that I should do a doctorate. I sometimes ask myself, it did take me 7 years to get there. I thought as a manager, when staff say I'm going to do a master's, I would say to them, make sure you take time. Give yourself a day a week to do this. Schedule in regular time to do this in your evenings, but actually you need to take some work time to do this. But in my master's and my PhD time, I just did it in my own time. So many a holiday has been spent doing some research, but actually I've loved doing it. So it's time that I've spent, but I'm glad I've done it, and probably wouldn't do a second one, shall I say. Okay, next one. I became a board member. So I came to Cardiff Vale to pick up an executive director of therapies and health science. To be honest, it never was on my plan to come back from England back into Wales to work. And I loved doing my job in South Devon. But I did get a knock on my door saying, "Oh, Fiona, do you know there's exec director jobs going in Wales? Do you fancy coming back?" And actually, in England, there aren't exec director roles for therapists or health scientists at that level. It is just a medical director and a nurse director. Actually, if you go to Scotland or Northern Ireland, there are exec roles for us. But I was delighted to become an exec role. And I had to understand actually what an exec role was, because there wasn't really a person that I knew that had been in this type of role from my sort of profession before. But the board is made up of independent members and executives, a range of different subcommittees, but we have corporate responsibility for the organisation. The execs have to give assurance to the independent members. And as a clinical executive, we have to be really hot on governance to make sure that the quality of care that we give is good, and that we can assure the board that all is in hand, and where it isn't, that we've got plans to improve. So there is something about learning to manage both inside the organisation with our different clinicians, our different management structures within the organisation, but also outwardly managing with Welsh Government, across to other organisations like HEIW, Digital Health and Care Wales, NHS Collaborative, but also with our other health boards. And the huge benefit of working in Wales is we're here to share. We're not here to compete with each other. And I'm hoping that as my time as a board member and as exec director of therapies and health science, that we've been able to really promote therapists and healthcare scientists within Wales. And I hope that our boards know that it's more about not just doctors and nurses, that allied health professions and healthcare scientists have really great work to do. And I was really heartened today at Cardiff Vale board that the chair, in his chair's report today, really drew out the huge work that the decontamination scientists have been doing during last months. And I'm delighted to lead for decontamination in CMV. And at our meeting in a couple of weeks' time, I'll be telling our scientists there that actually the chair has absolutely recognised and brought to the attention of the board the great work that their team are doing. And our board and the CTM board does know, and I know that all of the other health boards do now, because we've got therapists and scientists in exec roles. So I just pop on this next very busy slide. And if anybody wants to have a look at the next slide to find out in all of these little boxes the things that I do, let me know and I can give you a fuller version that you can see. I'm not going to bore you to death with all of this. There's a range of things there that I lead on, but they come under 4 different categories. There's things that I do that are professional regulatory, making sure that all the therapists and scientists act as the HCPC would want us to. There's things that I pick up in the partnership forum, a range of things that I pick up as an exec director, some of them that I never thought that I would pick up. Some of them are way beyond what I ever trained to do. I never thought that I would be an armed forces champion for the health board. Yet this evening I'm going to the Armed Forces Award to nominate an award to one of the local armed forces. And I was delighted to present to a House of Commons Select Committee on the Armed Forces Act for Wales. It's surprising what comes across your door that you never thought. But there's a whole range of things I do as an exec director with my colleagues across Wales that we lead on a range of things that NHS Wales is doing. And now I'm also the interim exec director for CTM2 and picking up a range of stuff there. So it's all fun, but keeps us busy. All right, next one. So some of the achievements, the top achievement I say is, well, I'm still here after 11 3/4 years, but I'm hoping that I've said it's not just doctors and nurses, and there's a whole range of things that I have learned significantly during this last period. I'm hoping that I've seen many staff win awards, many staff actually do some great recognition for service improvements they've made, and that I've been part of Cardiff and Vale moving it to a better place. And also with CTM, seeing that CTM is really on the up, and there's some great work going on there. And, it's been an absolute privilege to do all of this work. I was humbled yet thrilled to be awarded an MBE for healthcare in the New Year's Awards this year. But again, it comes back. Never forget that it's not just about us, it's really all here for patients and citizens. So some of the specifics that I'd put on you here. So these are some of the things. I'm really not going to read through all of these for you. But if you think, well, what is it that she's done and what is it that she's achieved? I'm hoping that within that list, you can see something that might be a service that you're involved with, or a service that you've done. But some of these, there's a range of things that I've done in healthcare science that, I've really drawn on Clive, my assistant director, to guide me in all things science. I know much more than I ever did. But, Clive has led on a load of these under the umbrella of the directors of therapies and health science. And, my other assistant directors are leading on a range of these. But I work with a range of medics and others on leading these. And, one of the big projects I'm working on at the moment is the Senior Responsible Officer for Eye Care Digitisation, for which we were a finalist for the Health and HSJ Awards last week, and are finalists for 2 awards next week for this project that we're running. But it's all about our fabulous therapists and scientists, and you are all too many to mention. But there's some great work that I've been privileged to touch on. But actually, it's all you lot that's delivered this, not just me. Okay, next one. So I go to a bit of the giving back. I reflected in my career. I was privileged to be able to go to INSEAD. The NHS invested in me to go there. And I thought, actually, what is it that I wish that I had had when I started in my early management career? Because there never was any toolbook that I could pick up to say, how do you do an appraisal? How do you do this? What should I do about this? So with one of my other colleagues, who was an AHP who went to INSEAD, we developed, co-authored and edited a series of 5 books. And I'm not saying that you need to go out and get these. They're a teeny bit out of date now, some of these, to be honest, but actually, good content, but with a whole range of contributors from a range of different places, and different subspecialty experts helped us to do these. So I'm hoping that one of the legacies that I've done is actually left some information that people might want to dip into from time to time if they're thinking, can you tell us a bit about managing a budget? Well, actually, there's a book that I know that I could commend to you if you just want to have a little look at it, and it would give you some guidance. So a little bit about giving back. And again, I never thought that I would be writing or editing books. And if I just come on to the next one, there's something about the people that you touch and touch your career on the way. So top left, Menna Thomas. Some of you from West Wales might know her. We were students together in Salford. Next couple of people were, when I was the regional steward for Wales, they were unit stewards. And actually 2 people here went on to have very influential careers in NHS Wales. So some South Devon colleagues at the top. Paul Meyers, Chief Exec in CTM. I first bumped into him in South Devon about 18 years ago. 2 consultant physios there in the second line that were the first consultants in NHS Southwest, fabulous clinicians. And there's medics, there's professors, there's my PhD supervisor. Special mention to Jan Williams, who did actually appoint me as the exec director for Cardiff and Vale, which was great. And then the bundle of my exec director colleagues and my assistant directors, who have been really staunch allies to help develop this role and deliver this for me. And 2 names who are too camera shy to give me their photos in the end. So Emma and Mel, I have called you out. Okay, next slide. And the ones that really matter, well, you don't just do this at work. It is about the girls at home and the dog, who I did give a very good long walk to this morning, hoping that he would stay silent whilst I'm doing this talk to you this afternoon. And the next slide, please. So some of the leadership learning here, it's about challenging yourself. Make sure you're qualified, but actually expose yourself to as much experience you can. Some of it's uncomfortable. I do remember when I did some management training, the chief exec had to give me a project to do. They gave me stroke services. I thought I know nothing about stroke. They said, "Oh no, you know about musculoskeletal, but go and reorganise our stroke services across South Devon. Oh, and do it with social care as well." Oh my gosh, that was complex. But actually, it's a journey that has taken me on a long way. And I now actually chair the stroke group for Wales. But actually, I wouldn't have chosen to have redesigned stroke services because it was really complex with a lot of change to do. But we went from bottom of the snap table to in the top quartile, which was fabulous. But there's some things you need to do. You need to be credible. So, again, qualifications that you need behind you is important. If you make mistakes, don't worry, you'll learn from them and grow for them. So, don't be so safe that you never make a mistake, I think would be the thing to say. Speak up when you need to. And I guess one of the things that was quite stark for me, I was asked to be the external reviewer for the allied health professions in mid Staffordshire. And when I went there, I did think, actually, why did the therapists not call it out when they saw that there wasn't good care going on? Because they were good therapists and they were good therapists, but there was something about the culture there that didn't enable them to speak up. So I would always say, better to call it out and, be true to yourself, and then you know that you've done the right thing, even though it's uncomfortable. Do your best, always go the extra mile, but make friends on the way and keep them. Next one, please. So, opportunities, if you're thinking, in my career, am I going to be a specialist clinician? Should I go down a management route? What I say is, wherever you are in your career, whatever step of your career, you have choices. When I was starting my career, there weren't consultant therapists. So actually, if you wanted to get to the top of your career, you did have to go down a management route. You could become a senior one at that time, a band 7 equivalent now, and there was nowhere else to go as an expert clinician. But now you've got routes in both directions and you can do both. But my question to you is, do you have a career plan? Because it doesn't happen by osmosis. You've got to construct it and you've got to do it. Have you listened to what people think about you? Do you know where your strengths are? Do you know where you could do a little bit of tweaking to improve? Are you active on social media? Because people that are Twitter active or LinkedIn active get themselves known. Make your chief exec your best friend, because actually they quite like it. And, be active in this way. Have you got a coach? Do you need a mentor? Because if you say no and no to those, you certainly need one of them. You might need two of them, and you definitely benefit from having one or two of them. Are you looking out for opportunities? Have you got a network where you find things that are going on? Think about what difference you could make to your service. Are you putting yourself forward for awards? Are you promoting your service? Are you telling others about the fabulous work that you're doing? But think, are you good as a clinician? Are you better as a manager? Because they're not mutually exclusive. You can do both these days, or you might want to do one and then go another. Next slide, please. So, thinking about the leadership challenge for healthcare science, because therapists probably have a bit of an easier route than scientists, but for scientists, there's also legacy that you can take here because you do manage in really complex landscapes. But you've got multiple opportunities to look at your career portfolio, and you can move across it. But sometimes you need to move a little bit outside of the profession that you're in. But scientists are great at looking at quality and safety and got real opportunities there. And you can look at the benefits of consolidating your service. And there's lots of work going on where sciences are coming together across South Wales. So be part and parcel of this. Next slide, please. So, talent behaviours. There's said to be 5 big talent behaviours. So these are things to ask yourself. Are you a self-starter? Because effective leaders should be. Have you got a strong orientation around team? More about the we than the I. Are you thinking that you need to strive for excellence? Because you should. Are you always looking to improve? I bet you are, but try a bit harder. And are you looking to be mastery of what you do, looking for loving learning and growth? And I know that so many of you are. So if you are, you've got the 5 big talents. Great. Next one. So, looking into leadership and culture. So, I'm not going to repeat the discussion this morning that we had when Helen Thomas was talking about compassionate leadership. But, there is the elements of compassionate leadership that we need to bring into this. But, thinking about the culture and leadership that you have within your teams, really important that you look at the empowerment, about building a leadership culture. And just a reminder of the 4 behaviours for compassionate leadership: attending, understanding, empathising, and helping. And I think these resonate really well with therapists and scientists. Next one, please. Now, if you want to learn from others and perhaps another species, look at geese. And there are whole stories that you can look up on Google about the wisdom of geese. But geese really work well as a flock because they work together. They work in a V formation with a leader. The leader actually honks. I wouldn't say that I would recommend that sort of AHP or science leaders honk, but actually by working together, they move faster together than they do individually. They work by speeding up together. And if there's one who's not so great, actually a colleague sits with them and flaps their wings with them whilst they fall back a bit before they come back and join the flock. They're there to encourage each other, share together, and they do protect the weaker ones in the group. And actually, there's a range of them take it in turn to be the leader. So if you want to have a bit of a laugh at some geese, it's a really great one to do this. And if we'd been in a proper conference room, I think I might have had a little geese honk at this stage. So just think of that one to yourself. Next one, please. But just thinking about the focus of leadership, HEIW have this leadership portal. Are you familiar with it? Do you go looking at it? Have you looked at all the stuff that they've got on compassionate leadership and the opportunities that there are there? So this is one of the places that you need to regularly look at. And the next one, please. So taking us back to the roots of the NHS and Bevan and his values, just thinking about our scientists and therapists, we are truly brilliant. And if we are brilliant together, this actually does deliver prudent healthcare for us, but makes a sustainable and values-driven NHS. So, just bring this back to our leadership journey. We're there to really distill and deliver the values that Bevan gave to us. Next one, please. So, thinking about where we are with saying a good well done for being a leader of therapists and scientists, what I say to you is, on my career and my reflections, be a leader as a partner, just not a leader for yourself. Take up opportunities to mentor and coach others. I do quite a few. Lead the tempered radicals, those that are a bit disruptive. Actually, they're probably your flying stars that are a bit frustrated. So work with them. They've got real energy that can move your services on. Find support that you might need for yourself and friends on your journey. But sometimes when you're out there, don't be afraid to ask a killer question. Because actually, if we all say yes, 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 we agree, we actually don't challenge. And sometimes we need to challenge to make things different. But you've got to keep it simple in distilling this to your team so that everybody knows what their part and parcel is on the task that you have to improve your service and improve what you're doing. As I said before, show your appreciation. A few words go down well, and sometimes we don't think and reflect well enough around saying well done to a job that has been well done. Remember the benefits of the team, but also remember what you want others to do and actually what they want you to do for them. I say I've had a lifelong journey of learning, and I'm hoping that that in my learning that I've helped others to support their learning journeys too. But know yourself. It's really important that you understand what makes you tick and what drives you. Next one, please. So some tips for you in succession planning. As managers, what I'd say is you've got a list of things here that you need to do with your team. Make sure that everybody has an appraisal. I know this says it's a given, but is it a given that's actually done? It's time consuming. You probably haven't all had appraisals yourself because probably your line managers are busy. But actually, if your staff don't know where they fit into the jigsaw of what you're trying to deliver, they're not going to grow either. Make sure you have a pipeline of staff. Predict ahead. Take some gamble on predicting for some staff that you're going to need next year and the year after. Develop them now. Don't leave it too late. Know every detail of your budget. Use it wisely, because you can flex it up and down to be creative in staff promotion that you can do and the skill mix that you can do. Look at solutions. Go knocking on doors. Don't wait for people to come knocking on yours. Develop your staff internally. They're not always out there with the skills that you need, and you're probably better to develop your own staff that you know their skills. Shape the commissioning that we do with HEIW. Tell us what you need for this year, next year, the year after. But don't be too busy to develop your staff. If you're not going to do it, who is? And don't forget your own development. Next slide, please. And for those of you that are clinical staff, thinking about your development too, ensure that you have an appraisal, and there's a whole list of things there. Decide, do you want to be an expert clinician, or are you better at managing a team? Do you want to manage your own profession? Do you want to work across the different professions in a clinical role? Do you want to go into a general management role? Are you looking to becoming a director of therapies and health science? But whatever you are, whoever you are, step out of your comfort zone, because that's how you will flourish. So, some development opportunities. Go looking. I think I've said that a few times, haven't I? But if I say it a few times, it will resonate. Get a network, grow it. Mentor, coach, yes, get one of those. Be a champion for change. Look at the leadership portal we've got there. But we've got a new year coming. There's nothing like a Christmas period to be thinking, where am I going with my career? So reflect in the next month or so about where you're going to do. But look in the UK, look wider. Don't just look within Wales. Look at opportunities much broader. And look at both networks professionally and academically. And next one. So your role as a leader, look at it at different levels, both macro, micro and meso levels, because leadership is at all levels, as we know. And I would say step up to the challenge, whatever your role, because if it's not you that's going to be a leader, who is? And you've dialed in here today, you obviously have a thirst for this. So you might be on level 1 of this ladder, you might be near the top of it, but there's always more steps to go. And can you take the step forward would be the next one. Well, we've got a framework for therapists and scientists, so surely you can help us deliver on this one. We need you to work across the professional boundaries. We need you to look at the workforce models that we've got. We don't want you to be shy. We want you to come knocking on the directors of therapies and health science door to help us, because we can't do it. And what we know is more of the same of what we've been doing is, as the minister said this morning, not what's going to get us to where we need to be. So we need your help. So come and step forward and help us on your leadership journey. And in summary, here's a quote. It's not my own, but I think it's quite a good summary. It says that leadership isn't a behavior. It is a behavior, sorry, but it's not a title and it's not a position, but it's a behavior that we can all have, unlocking a multitude of things. I'm not going to read it out to you. You can read it to yourself. But it really ends up by saying, how can I enhance and enrich the lives of others? So I'm sure these slides will be made available. Have a look at this one afterwards. So what I'd say is it's good fun, and there's a load of different people that I've touched with on here, and the one in the middle on the left is the podiatry service in Cardiff Vale, who did a fabulous video last year, which we really had to sort of be brave to publish, but it was absolutely great to get a message across that they did. And the one at the bottom of them, the right, was during COVID, when we went with the executive team in Cardiff Vale to the critical care department to clap the staff, who were so humbled that we'd taken time one evening to go and thank them for a job well done. And Clive, that's you in the middle at the bottom there, building the Dragon's Heart Hospital and really stepping out of your comfort zone during COVID period, which I'm sure a lot of us have done. But I put in the picture there a middle, the rainbow over Llandoch Hospital during COVID time. The storms were brewing ahead. The rainbow came out, and I just thought, you know what, I've got to take a picture of this. It just sort of summarises where the NHS is at the moment. A great rainbow in dark times. So finally, some questions. Oh God, I don't know who gave me an hour. It was a lot to fill. So 10 out of 10 for you sort of staying with me for this. Now, I know that there are some questions here. So if I go just to go through some of these. So now it's going to test me about this. So one of them is, you mentioned the importance of giving back, mentoring stars and responsibility. Did I have a mentor coach that influenced my journey? I've had several, to be honest, but Penny Humphreys, who you saw a picture of, who was a really senior role in the NHS leadership faculty in England, who commissioned the course at INSEAD. She was a coach who I approached to see would she be my coach, to challenge me on my journey. So she's been one of them who was actually pivotal. And of course, when I came to Cardiff, I didn't realise that she actually started her general management career at Cardiff Royal Infirmary. So it's very strange how career paths change. I've also had a nurse director who I asked to be a mentor for me at one stage, and a range of others, but also a chief executive of one of the local authorities in South Wales has been a mentor for me too. So not always within the NHS, not always within my own profession. But yes, I mentor a few people within Wales, within the UK, and a couple internationally too. So, just ask somebody who you think can help you. And if they're too busy, they'll tell you that. But also, there is a portal that you can have through HEIW, and they'll tell you there are some accredited coaches and mentors that you can approach. And there's many people who've been on coaching education that are able to offer this support to you. Apart from INSEAD, are there others? Oh, I would say King's Fund is definitely one where I go to. They do some fabulous stuff, very health bespoke, bit expensive. You might get sponsored to go on it. You might have to dip your hand into it. There's also summer school and winter school that NHS Wales do. Get yourself on those. And there are others like Cranfield and such. Look in the HSJ, look at NHS England, have a discussion with some of the colleagues in HEIW, speak to some of your executives team, speak to your WAD team and your LED team within your organisation. Have I been exposed to the leadership philosophies of compassionate leadership? Oh gosh, I'm going to be very careful here, Mark Knight Davis. When I heard compassionate leadership, things get rebranded from time to time, and I'm minded that I'm, at the latter part of my career rather than the early part of it, and things get a label of the day, and compassionate leadership is one of those that's very topical at the moment, but it just pulls together a whole range of themes under one umbrella. And we would know that Michael West, who is a guru for compassionate leadership, he was also the guru for team working that came out of Warwick University. And some things get rebranded from time to time. But yes, there's lots of themes within that. Are there any opportunities that I didn't take? Oh gosh, now this is one. When I reflect now, I was given the opportunity to go into general management within a clinical board when I was in South Devon, and it was the equivalent of Therapies, Health Science, Women and Children's Services, and I was at CD for Therapies at the time, and it was an opportunity. They said, Fiona, would you do this? And I thought, do you know what? I want to stay wedded with my profession and not to go into general management. Actually, it's a step now that I'm thinking perhaps I should have gone into general management sooner, because you never leave your professional roots behind you. And if you want to grow and become an executive sooner, you need to step out of your profession sooner. And if you want to be an executive in England, you'll only get there if you go through a general management route. But are there any opportunities that I had taken that I didn't take? No, everything. You learn from whatever you do, be they good, be they bad. Anything I would do differently on my leadership journey? Ooh, Wendy, I'm going to have to reflect on that one and think, because we're nearly time out. What would I have done? I think I would have gone into management sooner. I think I should have gone to be a head of physio sooner. I think I should have had a career profession sooner. But, I got there in the end, I suppose, is what I would say. So I'll have a look at those questions and see if there's anything else on there. But I sense that you all know where I am. Feel free to get in contact on either of my two email addresses, either the CTM one or the Cardiff Vale one, and I'll happily follow up with any of you. I sense that you're all now allowed to go and have tea. So thanks very much, and thanks for sticking with me for an hour. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.